This is a video of a Yale model Quad N. The Quad N designation is Yale's model number for their 4-movement time lock that contained their largest M-sized movements and was designed to operate as an automatic, in other words, on a bolt motor as is shown here. This is the original bolt motor that went with the lock as it was installed in around 1890. This is the version 1. As with many of their other time locks, such as their Quad M, which was designed to operate with conventional bolt work. In other words, it would have had a hole in the side for the bolts to slide through, the manual bolt work. This came in 2 different versions. The earlier version had a full glass with the winding holes through the glass, and their version 2, which was introduced a couple of years later, a few years later, had the half glass door. So the glass would have been only from here on up with metal below, and that was to avoid the breaking of the glass from a careless insertion of the key. The door is now open on the time lock, and you can see it's equipped with 4 M-sized 120-hour movements. These movements were probably upgraded by Yale a few years after the introduction of this lock, because at the time there would have been standard 72-hour movements. Yale actively replaced the 72-hour M-size movements with 120-hour movements all the way through the history of the company, all the way up until about 1970. So in essence, finding an M-sized movement time lock that has 72-hour movements, while normally higher duration movements are rarer and were much more expensive to the end user. In this case, for the M movements, from a collector's viewpoint, the 72-hour movements are actually more desirable because there are fewer of those that escaped Yale's campaign of upgrading the 72-hour time locks to the 120-hour time locks. Nonetheless, having a time lock with the largest movement available, which was this M-size movement, is still a very rare or fairly rare type of time lock to have. I will now remove the front cover to the bolt motor. Revealing the mechanism inside. Consists of a redundant system of 2 springs which are wound from here and here. And I will now wind up the time lock so that one can see how the system is actually put on guard. So we'll start with winding the first movement up, say to about 3 hours. Second one, third, and you'll see when we begin winding the 4th movement, this snubber bar will then begin moving to the left, and this will then begin to move this pin, thus allowing these to be armed. Now, you're not going to actually see this arming because I have not wound these springs, and there's no way that I'm going to wind up these springs because they're extremely powerful and can really only be wound up with this mounted to a vault door because of the torque that's necessary. But as you wind this, you now see the snubber bar moving toward the left here, which then cantilevers on this lever here, allowing this lower bar to move to the right and this pin to move to the right, and this then allowing this lever to start pivoting left. Now, if these things were actually wound, this and this catch would be caught onto this here. You only need to wind this 1/4 turn to arm the spring, which then will hook onto this catch here and here. And again, these springs were redundant. This one was meant to be wound first, and then this one second. And it even says on here, wind this one first. And here is a view of the set of 4 dampening pistons. And you can see how if you pull one out, and it's very viscous inside there, very hard to pull out, and you can see how it slowly retracts back into its container. And this was again used to dampen the bolts when they would be thrown. We're now seeing the bolt motor in the off guard position. So what you have is the bolt itself is this part here, here, and here. And within this movement, it is actually one piece as a Y, like so. This is the bolt dampening system. And these are grooved here and here and are keyed into this area here. And each of these dampening cylinders are also keyed to fit here, 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 and here. So when this is in the off-guard position as it is now, these are pushed further into this key and there's some space. When this is released, these will suddenly jump inward and push these cylinders inward, and these cylinders each are in a viscous fluid which are all dampened, and that will cause this, which will fly this way, to push the bolts in the vault door, but in a controlled manner. This damper box makes that happen in a controlled manner. It mediates, it moderates the sudden action of these springs that are being released. And now I will demonstrate how the bolt motor operated. Basically, you first had to wind the time lock to the desired number of hours. Now it turns out that this will not fully arm unless this time lock has been wound past about 6 hours, because it won't allow this lever to fully move over completely and be able to catch what it needs to catch. So then what one would do is take the key that was shown earlier, and that key is basically here, and that key would then be inserted into this first and then this one second, and it would then be wound counterclockwise. That would cause this to move counterclockwise and push this lever aside and cause it to catch. Now I'm going to do that just with my finger back here, because it's very hard to push on this side with your finger, but it's easier on this side. So one then just simply, it would then simply be pushed upward like so and catches on this thing here, and this one also can be pushed in the same manner upward to also catch And then when this winds down, this snubber bar moves this way, and then this one will release the bolts. But if this should break for any reason, the emergency will kick in a little bit later, and that then releases this, and the bolts are thrown. It should also be noted that there is a safety catch here, which moves like so. And when this part here, which is your dampener, which was seen before installed like so, when the dampener is fully retracted and adjacent to the case, when the door is in the open position, the damper pushes this over. Now I will show you what that actually does. I now have put the damper back on, and you can see it right here with the 4 pistons. It's not fully installed because it's a hassle to get in and out, but what it does do is it keeps this lever pushed outward because it's now hitting the edge of the box that holds the damper. Now I have armed this, and again, in a normal operation, these would be rotated a quarter turn counterclockwise, and so would be catching on here and here. So again, the time lock begins to unwind. The first one releases, and then the second one, though, will not release. It will stay fully wound up. And that is to prevent both of them from being unwound when the door is in the open position. I've now removed the damper box from the edge here, and if you continue pushing this snubber bar, the lower one now releases.